My name is Dr. Nathan Cross, and I've been a medical examiner for 17 years. I've seen bodies in every state of decay you can imagine. Gunshot wounds that turn skulls into jigsaw puzzles, drowning victims bloated beyond recognition. Burn cases where the skin peeled away like old wallpaper. I've cut open the chests of murder victims, suicide cases, accident fatalities, and people who simply dropped dead for reasons nobody could explain. I thought I'd seen everything. I was wrong. It started on a Tuesday night in late October. I remember because my daughter's birthday was that weekend, and I'd promised my ex-wife I'd actually show up this time. The county morgue where I work sits in the basement at Municipal Hospital, a squat concrete building that looks like it was designed by someone who'd given up on life. The fluorescent lights hum constantly, a sound that gets into your bones after a while. The air always smells like bleach and something else, something organic and wrong that no amount of cleaning can ever quite eliminate. I was alone that night. My assistant Carol had called in sick. The night security guard, Marcus, was somewhere upstairs making his rounds. The building felt emptier than usual, the silence pressing against my eardrums like water pressure. The body had arrived around 9 p.m. Male, mid-30s, found unresponsive in his apartment by a neighbor who'd noticed the smell. No signs of trauma, no suicide note, no drug paraphernalia. The paramedics had pronounced him dead at the scene, and the police hadn't found anything suspicious. Standard stuff. I'd expected to find a heart defect, maybe an aneurysm, something that explained a seemingly healthy man dropping dead without warning. I wheeled the gurney into the autopsy suite and transferred the body onto the steel table. The overhead lights cast harsh shadows across his face. He looked peaceful, almost like he was sleeping. No expression of pain or fear. His skin had that waxy quality the dead get after a few hours, pale and slightly translucent. His eyes were closed. His hands were relaxed at his sides. The toe tag read, John Doe, case number 470809. Estimated time of death, approximately 6 p.m. I pulled on my gloves, the latex snapping against my wrists. I'd done this thousands of times. The routine was comforting in its predictability. External examination first. I noted his height, weight, approximate age. No visible injuries, no needle marks, no defensive wounds. His fingernails were clean, neatly trimmed. He was wearing boxer shorts and a white t-shirt, the clothes he died in. I started the external exam at his head. Working my way down, I checked his scalp for contusions, his eyes for petechiae, his mouth for obstructions. Everything was normal. His neck showed no signs of strangulation. His chest was unmarked. His abdomen was soft, not distended. That's when I noticed his hand had moved. I stopped, scalpel hovering above his chest. I stared at his left hand, which was now resting at a slightly different angle than before. The fingers curled inward instead of relaxed. I felt a cold ripple move through my stomach. I'd been doing this long enough to know that bodies shift sometimes. Rigor mortis comes and goes. Gases build up and escape. Muscles can twitch post-mortem as cells die and release their contents. It's not supernatural, it's just biology doing what biology does. But I'd been watching this body continuously since I'd placed it on the table, and I hadn't seen it move. I shook my head, trying to clear the unease creeping up my spine. I was tired. I'd been pulling double shifts for the past week, covering for another examiner who'd quit unexpectedly. Fatigue makes you see things that aren't there. I knew that. I made the Y incision, cutting from each shoulder to the sternum, then down to the pubic bone. The scalpel parted the skin cleanly, revealing the yellow subcutaneous fat beneath. No blood welled up. The dead don't bleed like the living. I used root cutters to snip through the cartilage connecting the ribs to the sternum, the metallic crunch echoing in the empty room. I lifted the chest plate away, exposing the organs beneath. Everything looked perfect. The heart was a healthy size, the muscle tissue firm and pink. The lungs were clear, no signs of edema or disease. The liver was the right color, the right consistency. I removed each organ systematically, weighing them, examining them, taking samples for later analysis. The stomach contents were minimal. The kidneys were pristine. The spleen was unremarkable. I checked everything twice, 3 times. There was nothing wrong with this man. No tumors, no blockages, no infections, no congenital defects. His organs were healthier than mine probably were. People don't just die for no reason. There's always a cause, even if it's not immediately obvious. A pulmonary embolism, a cardiac arrhythmia, a stroke, something. But I couldn't find anything. I was standing there, staring at the empty chest cavity, trying to figure out what I was missing, when I heard the sound. A wet, sliding noise, like meat moving against metal. I looked down at the chest plate I'd removed, which I'd set on the side table. It was back in place, covering the open cavity. The ribs had somehow reconnected themselves. The cut edges fused back together seamlessly. The skin had sealed, the Y incision gone, as if I'd never made it. My hand started shaking. I reached out slowly, touching the chest. The skin was cool under my gloved fingers, but there was something underneath it now. A faint vibration, like the rumble of a motor running deep inside. I grabbed the scalpel again and made another incision. Faster this time, my hands moving on autopsy. I cut through the skin, through the reformed tissue, and pried the chest open again. The organs I'd removed were back inside, all of them. The heart, the lungs, the liver, everything, sitting in their proper places as if I'd never touched them. I could see the scale across the room where I'd weighed the heart 3 minutes ago. The organ was on the scale and inside the body simultaneously, existing in 2 places at once. I stepped back from the table, my breath coming faster now. The room felt colder. The fluorescent light seemed dimmer, flickering at the edges of my vision. This wasn't possible. This wasn't biology. This was something else. I should have left then. I should have walked out of that room, locked the door, called someone. But 17 years of training and stubbornness kept me rooted in place. There had to be an explanation, a rational explanation. I was a scientist. I dealt in facts and evidence and observable phenomena. I didn't believe in ghosts or magic or anything that couldn't be measured and quantified. I forced myself to approach the table again. The body lay exactly as I'd positioned it initially, arms at its sides, head straight. But as I got closer, I saw that the head had tilted. Just slightly, just enough that it was now angled toward me instead of facing straight up at the ceiling. I stopped breathing. The face was still peaceful. The eyes were still closed, but the head had definitely moved. I circled the table slowly, keeping my distance, watching for any other changes. The fingers on the left hand were bent differently now, curled as if grasping something invisible. The right foot had rotated outward. Small adjustments, subtle shifts that I might have missed if I weren't looking for them. The body was repositioning itself while I wasn't watching directly. I grabbed my phone from the counter, my hands trembling so badly I almost dropped it. I needed to document this. I needed evidence that I wasn't losing my mind. I raised the phone to take a picture, and that's when the heart monitor turned on. The machine sat against the wall, unplugged, switched off. I hadn't used it because the patient was already dead, and now it was beeping steadily, the screen showing a regular cardiac rhythm. A strong, healthy heartbeat at 72 beats per minute. The sound filled the room, each beep hammering into my skull like a nail. I looked at the body. The chest wasn't moving. There was no respiration, but the monitor insisted that the heart was beating, that blood was circulating. that life was happening on that metal table. I backed toward the door. My legs reeked beneath me. I needed to get out. I needed to leave this room and never come back. But my body wouldn't obey. I stood there, paralyzed by a fear so primal and overwhelming that it bypassed every rational thought in my brain. The eyes opened. Not quickly, not dramatically. They just slid open slowly, like someone waking from a pleasant dream. The irises were hazel, flecked with gold. I tracked across the ceiling, then down to me, focusing with terrible clarity. The mouth opened. "You're cutting the wrong side." The voice was soft, almost gentle. It didn't sound like it came from dead lungs or a still throat. It sounded human, real, concerned. I ran. I crashed through the door, my shoulders slamming into the frame. I stumbled into the hallway, the fluorescent lights burning my eyes. My feet slacked against the linoleum as I sprinted toward the stairs. I had to get upstairs, had to find Marcus, had to get away from whatever was in that room. I made it to the stairwell before I heard the sound behind me. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, the soft slap of bare feet against the floor. I didn't look back. I grabbed the stair rail and hauled myself upward, taking the steps 2 at a time. My lungs burned. My heart hammered against my ribs. The footsteps continued below me, maintaining the same steady pace, not hurrying, not slowing. I burst through the door on the ground floor and ran down the corridor toward the security desk. Marcus wasn't there. The desk was empty, his coffee still steaming in its mug, his magazine open to a half-read page. "Marcus," I shouted, my voice cracking. "Marcus, where are you?" No response. The hospital was silent. Not the normal nighttime quiet, but a heavy, suffocating absence of sound. No distant voices, no beeping machines, no footsteps from the floors above. I was alone. I heard the stairwell door open behind me. I spun around, pressing myself against the wall. The hallway stretched empty in both directions. Nothing moved. Nothing made a sound. Then I saw him. The body, the John Doe standing in the corridor about 20 feet away, still wearing the boxer shorts and t-shirt, still pale and waxy, but upright, mobile, looking at me with those hazel eyes that held something I couldn't name. He took a step toward me. "You're cutting the wrong side," he said again, his voice echoing strangely in the empty hallway. "What does that mean?" I heard myself ask, the words coming out strangled, and then, "What are you talking about?" He didn't answer. He just kept walking toward me, each step measured and purposeful. I noticed he wasn't breathing. His chest didn't rise or fall, but he moved like a living person, balanced and coordinated. I ran again, this time toward the main entrance. I could see the glass doors ahead, the parking lot beyond them lit by orange streetlights. I just needed to get outside, to get away from this building and whatever impossible thing was happening inside it. My hand was on the door handle when I saw my reflection in the glass. Standing behind me, close enough to touch, was the body. I looked around, but the hallway was empty. I looked back at the reflection. He was still there, standing so close I should have felt his breath on my neck. In the reflection, he raised his hand and pointed at my chest. "You're cutting the wrong side," he whispered, and this time his voice seemed to come from inside my own head. I shoved through the doors and into the parking lot. The October air hit my face, cold and real. I ran to my car, fumbling for my keys, my hands shaking so violently I couldn't get them in the lock. I finally managed to unlock the door and threw myself inside, slamming the locks down. I sat there in the driver's seat, gasping, my entire body trembling. The hospital loomed in front of me, its windows dark and empty. Nothing moved. Nothing followed me out. I started the car and drove home, gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles went white. I kept checking the rearview mirror. expecting to see that pale face staring back at me from the back seat. But there was nothing, just empty leather and shadows. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I sat in my living room with every light on, drinking coffee and trying to convince myself I'd hallucinated the whole thing. Stress-induced psychosis? That had to be it. I'd been working too hard, sleeping too little. My brain had finally short-circuited and created an elaborate delusion, but I couldn't shake the feeling of those eyes watching me, or that voice repeating the same inexplicable phrase, "You're cutting the wrong side." At 6 a.m. my phone rang. I jumped so hard I spilled coffee on my shirt. It was Marcus, the security guard, Dr. Cross. His voice sounded shaken. "You need to come back to the hospital right now." "What's wrong?" I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. "It's the body from last night, the John Doe. Something's wrong with the paperwork." I drove back to the hospital as the sun was rising, painting the sky in shades of gray and pink. The building looked normal in the daylight, just another unremarkable piece of municipal architecture. I almost convinced myself that last night had been a nightmare. Marcus was waiting for me at the morgue entrance. He looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. His hands were shaking as he handed me the autopsy report. "I don't know how this happened," he said. "I checked the logs. Everything was locked up. Nobody else has been down here." I looked at the report. My handwriting filled the preliminary notes section, documenting the beginning of the examination. But at the bottom, in the space for time of death, someone had written 11:47 p.m. 3 hours in the future from when I'd fled the building. "That's impossible," I said. "I wrote this report last night before I even started. That timestamp is wrong." "There's more," Marcus said quietly. He gestured toward the autopsy suite. I walked to the door, my legs feeling like they were made of lead. Through the window, I could see the metal table. Empty. The body was gone. "Did you move it?" I asked. Marcus shook his head. "When I came down here this morning to check on things, it was already gone." "But Dr. Cross, you need to look at the toe tag." He handed me the small manila tag that had been attached to the body's right foot. My blood turned to ice. The tag still read case number 47-2089, but the name had changed. Where it had said John Doe, it now read Nathan Cross. My name. "This is a mistake," I said, but my voice sounded hollow. "Someone's playing a sick joke. Carol, or one of the other staff. They're messing with me." "Carol's been in the ICU since yesterday afternoon," Marcus said softly. "Collapsed at home. Brain hemorrhage. They don't think she's going to make it." The room tilted around me. I grabbed the door frame to steady myself. "I need to see the body," I said. "Where did it go?" "Check the security cameras." Marcus pulled up the footage on his tablet. We watched the morgue hallway from last night. I saw myself wheel the gurney in at 9:33 p.m. The timestamp ticked forward. 9:30:15, 9:30, 9:45. At 10:12 p.m., I burst out of the autopsy suite and ran toward the stairs, exactly as I remembered. But the hallway behind me remained empty. No body followed me, no footsteps, nothing. At 10:47 p.m., the autopsy suite door opened again. I walked out, moving slowly and methodically, but it wasn't the me that had run away in panic. This version of me moved differently, with a strange, deliberate quality that made my skin crawl. I watched myself walk to the storage room, retrieve a body bag, and return to the suite. At 11:23 p.m., I emerged again, this time wheeling the gurney. A body bag lay on top, zipped shut. I watched myself take it to the cold storage lockers, slide it inside drawer 17, and lock it. Then I walked back to the autopsy suite and closed the door. The camera showed nothing else until Marcus arrived at 6 a.m. "That's not me," I whispered. "I wasn't here. I went home. I was at my apartment all night." Marcus didn't say anything. He He just rewound the footage and paused it on a clear shot of my face as I wheeled the body bag down the hallway. The timestamp read 11:23 p.m. It was definitely me. Same hair, same posture, same white coat with the coffee stain on the left pocket that I'd gotten 3 days ago. But I hadn't been here. Show me drawer 17, I said. We walked to the cold storage room. The wall of stainless steel lockers hummed quietly. Drawer 17 was locked. Just as the video had shown, I unlocked it and pulled it open. The body bag lay inside, still zipped. Through the translucent plastic, I could see the outline of a human form. Open it, Marcus said, but he stepped back as he said it. I grabbed the zipper. My hands were steady now, locked into a kind of numb autopilot. Whatever was in this bag, I needed to know. I pulled the zipper down. The body inside was mine, not someone who looked like me, not a doppelganger or a twin. It was me, exactly as I looked right now, down to the coffee stain on my coat. My eyes were closed. My skin was pale and waxy. My chest was still, no rise and fall of breath. But across the chest, running from shoulder to shoulder and down to the pubic bone, was a Y incision. The cut edges were clean, professional. Someone had autopsied my own corpse. Marcus made a choking sound behind me. I reached out with shaking hands and touched the body's chest. The skin was cool, rigid with early rigor mortis. This wasn't a hallucination. This was real. This was happening. I grabbed the edge of the incision and pulled it open. The inside was empty. Not empty like the organs had been removed. Empty like there had never been anything there at all. The chest cavity was a hollow space, smooth and unmarked, like the interior of a plastic mannequin. You're cutting the wrong side. The voice came from behind me. I spun around. The John Doe stood in the doorway, still pale, still not breathing, still watching me with those terrible, knowing eyes. What does that mean? I shouted, my voice breaking. What are you trying to tell me? He stepped into the room. Marcus had vanished. I was alone with this impossible thing. You keep looking for the cause of death in the body, he said softly, but you're cutting open the wrong person. The death isn't in here. He gestured at his own chest. It's in there. He pointed at me. I looked down at my own chest, at my hands, at my body that felt solid and real and alive. I don't understand, I said. Don't you remember? He asked. Don't you remember what happened at 6 p.m. yesterday? I tried to think back. Yesterday afternoon, I'd been at the hospital finishing up some paperwork. I'd gotten a call from my ex-wife, something about my daughter's birthday party. We'd argued. I'd been frustrated, distracted. I'd left the office to get some air. I'd walked down to the parking garage, and then nothing. The memory stopped there, like a film reel that had been cut and spliced. The next thing I remembered was arriving at work last night, ready to start the autopsy. You died in the parking garage, the John Doe said. Massive coronary event. You were dead before you hit the ground. The paramedics couldn't save you. They brought your body here, to the morgue where you'd worked for 17 years. No, I said, but the word came out weak. I'm alive. I'm here. I'm talking to you. Are you, he asked, or are you just a memory caught in a loop? A ghost who doesn't know he's dead, trying to find the cause of his own death? He stepped closer, and I saw that his eyes were the exact same shade as mine, hazel flecked with gold. You've been autopsying yourself all night, he said, looking for the answer, cutting open your own body, trying to find what killed you. But you can't see it because you're looking at the wrong person. The death is in the examiner, not the examined. I backed away from him, from the drawer, from the body that wore my face. This isn't real, I said. This can't be real. The toe tag has your name on it, he said. The time of death is 11,047 p.m., 3 hours from when you started the examination. That's when you'll finally accept what you are. When you'll finally stop running and understand. I looked at the door again, at my body lying there, hollow and empty, at the chest that had been cut open, the wrong side. He'd been trying to tell me from the beginning. I'd been so focused on examining him and finding the cause of death in his body that I'd never looked at myself. I never realized I was the one who was dead. I raised my hands in front of my face. They looked solid, real. But now that I was paying attention, I noticed they didn't cast quite the right shadow. The fluorescent light passed through them slightly, making them translucent at the edges. I touched my chest, felt for a heartbeat. Nothing. No pulse, no breath, no warmth. I was a memory, a loop, a ghost too stubborn to realize it had died. What happens now, I asked. The John Doe, who wasn't John Doe at all but something else, something that had come to guide me, or torment me, or simply show me the truth, smiled sadly. Now you finish the autopsy, he said. You complete the report. You accept what you are, and you let go. He pointed at the clock on the wall. It read 11:39 p.m. You have 8 minutes, he said. I looked at my body in the drawer, at the hollow chest cavity, at the space where my organs should have been but weren't, because I had removed them myself in a desperate attempt to understand my own death. I understood now why the chest had kept closing, why the organs had kept returning. I'd been trying to undo what couldn't be undone, to reverse a death that had already happened hours before I'd ever entered this room. The clock ticked to 11:40. I picked up the chest plate and positioned it over the cavity. This time, it stayed in place. I took needle and thread and began to stitch the Y incision closed, my hands moving with practiced precision, even though they were transparent now, almost invisible in the morgue's harsh light. 11:43. I worked steadily, pulling the edges of skin together, making everything neat and professional. Even in death, especially in death, the work had to be done right. 11:45, I finished the last stitch and stepped back. The body looked peaceful now, complete, ready for whatever came next. Did I do a good job? I asked the figure watching me. Was I a good medical examiner? You were the best, he said. You never gave up on finding the truth, not even on yourself. 11:47. The clock's second hand swept past the 12, and something inside me finally, mercifully released. The desperate need to understand, the frantic attempt to explain the inexplicable, all of it fell away like dead leaves from a winter tree. I looked at my hands and watched them fade, becoming smoke, becoming nothing. The last thing I saw was the toe tag, swinging gently from my body's foot. Nathan Cross. Time of death, 11:47 p.m. Cause acute myocardial infarction. The autopsy was complete. They found my body the next morning. Dr. Sarah Chan, my replacement, performed the examination. She noted the time of death as 6 p.m. the previous day, based on liver temperature and rigor mortis. She found evidence of severe coronary artery disease, multiple blockages that had been too stubborn or too busy to get checked. She wrote in her report that it was a tragedy, a preventable death, a good man lost too young. She never knew that I'd been there with her in the room, watching as she cut me open, as she weighed my heart and found it wanting. She never knew that I'd finally learned to see what I'd been missing all along. Sometimes you don't find the answer by looking at the body. Sometimes you have to realize that you're the one being examined, that you're the autopsy that wouldn't end. Until finally, mercifully, it does.